The Roaring Twenties, a glittering decade, soon came to an end. But at that time, everyone thought the party would carry on. Groucho Marx, the comedian, earned $2,000 a week on Broadway. On the stock exchange, he doubled it. It seemed that his future was assured.
By the time they came home, they'd call up the broker and see how the stocks did that day, and it all went up 3 or 4 more points. Well, he'd be happy about that, and he'd say, oh, it's better than working.
Wall Street, the pantheon of capitalism. Here, millions could be won and lost. Yet, for 7 years already, no one had lost. The stock market at the top, at its end, out of reach.
And when the market kept going up and up, it drew all kinds of small investors into it. The man in the street, the barber, the school teacher, the postal worker.
Times had never been better. Who was rich became still richer. The poor, on the other hand, had the chance to become wealthy. The stock fever gears America up. New technology boosts the economy and the imagination. The stock exchange game multiplies every single dollar.
They expected it to go on forever, just as they now expect the stock market to go on up forever.
As usual, banks and brokers were doing big business. If the market did not go as they wanted, they helped it on its way. They conspired with each other and manipulated the courses of the stocks. Nothing could stop it.
Al Capone, who was the great gangster, when asked about the stock market, replied, I've got my racket and they got theirs.
In the summer of 1929, the overheated economy was going full steam ahead. More was being produced than could be sold. The first few bankruptcies appeared. Still, no one took these seriously. The Wall Street fever of paper share trading continued.
Investors simply weren't paying attention to the underlying economic trends that were taking place. And some might say that's when greed takes over from common sense.
That summer, Eva Adams' stock hints were very popular. It seemed she knew how each stock would change. Her profession, not a broker guru, but a fortune teller. Groucho Marx was also one of the insatiable clients of Selwyn Sheffro.
They went in regardless of the price, and they overpaid. And so somebody had to pay for it.
The moment of truth came on Thursday in October 1929. On this day, America woke up and a nightmare began. Sold coupons completely covered the exchange floor.
People made offers to sell, and there was nobody there to make a bid to buy the stock. And that was when I would say panic set in.
There was no stopping the panic. Selling became the motto of all brokers.
Prices collapsed, just collapsed.
The collapse of the stock exchange had spread like wildfire in New York. Thousands of people streamed the Wall Street, fearing for their shares. The bankers, the potential big losers, were not giving up so easily. They sat together for a crisis meeting early in the afternoon, led by the banker Thomas Lamont.
Then when that group of bankers left 23 Wall Street, all those crowds out in the street saw them coming out of there, and the report quickly spread that the bankers had formed this great pool of money to support the stock market, so things were going to get better. That did, in fact, stem the tide of selling that afternoon.
No go. The collapse hit everyone. Groucho Marx, the famous comedian, had all his money in shares.
The phone rang and it was Max Gordon on the other end, and he says, Marx, and my father said yes, and Gordon said, the jig is up.
The only question was if this was the beginning or the end of the big collapse. Total confusion on Wall Street.
The speakeasies were wide open on Wall Street because you got a lot of investors going in there who lost a lot of money and were, if you will, drowning their losses.
Wall Street dominated the news. Newspapers still tried to reassure people. Bankers fenced off the worst. By the weekend, it became clear just how deep the collapse was and how long it would last.
And the following week, things were much worse, and the rumor developed that the financiers were selling out themselves.
This affected the market dramatically. People were really scared. Bankers left the sinking ship as there was no more hope. Everyone wanted to get out.
The brokerage offices were all filled with people waiting for the market to open, that opening bell, which would tell them how bad things might get. And they got very bad.
Out! Out! Get out of here! Get out of the market before it collapses.
People were just calling up their brokers and say, sell at the market. Panic, of course, fed on itself and got worse and worse.
Not a dream, but a nightmare came true. On that terrible Friday, Wall Street went bankrupt.
That was indeed one of the darkest days in the history of markets anywhere in the world.
The next day, on the floor of the stock exchange, shares were papers of no value.
My father had lost about $250,000, and then he, but that to him was his whole life saving.
Others had gambled even more. Some had lost everything they owned. In the weeks after the stock market crash, just in New York, a dozen bankers committed suicide.
I remember walking down the street in New York with my father after the crash, and we'd see fellows who used to be the bankers standing on the corner selling apples for a nickel apiece. That was pretty frightening.
The Wall Street crash was the beginning of a worldwide change, a new economic era, the consequences of which, in those days and weeks, no one could have guessed.
The Roaring '20s was often referred to as the Jazz Age. And after the crash in 1929, the music stopped. The great party was over.